Hello, wise ones. We have officially launched All the Wiser membership. If you love this show and the stories and wisdom we share, this is for you. We have everything from early release, live Zooms with me and the All the Wiser team, and you can even drop in and watch a recording. You can also get voice memos directly from me and receive producer credit with your name added to our website wall. You can learn more about the membership, including a short video for me, and sign up for the membership using the Patreon link below in our show notes. You can also go to allthewiserpodcast.com or Instagram at allthewiserpodcast to learn more. Today's conversation is with my dad. It's about our relationship, his brilliant mind, his big heart, and what he has learned about success on the outside and the inside. We shared with each other and for you the confusion, complexities, and gifts of generational mental illness and what it means to be fully seen and loved exactly as you are. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers and grandfathers listening today. And for those of you who have lost your fathers, who are no longer here in their earthly bodies, I hope you'll look for them in all the small little moments that make up your day and find comfort in knowing they are always by your side. Today's special Father's Day episode of A Little Wiser, I'm very, very excited about our guest because it is none other than my dad, Tom Davidson. Dad, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kimi.
I normally make our guests introduce themselves, but I knew you would like that, so I'm introducing you.
I love it.
Tom Davidson, husband, father of 3, grandfather of 7, and many, many other things in the world, but I know those are the ones that you hold most dear.
Absolutely, Kimi. Couldn't be more blessed.
So I did this with Mom on Mother's Day during the pandemic. So it only took you 3 years to get on the show after Mom. But I am really grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation with you for Father's Day. And also because you know this show so well. Have you listened to every episode?
Yes, of course.
And you and I have spent so much time talking about it. I really think that you get all the wiser. You get what the show is about, the intention, and our listeners. So I think that's important for people listening to know, too, that you're also a part of this community outside of being my dad. You're a all the wiser groupie. All right, well, let's get to the good stuff. Let's talk about us.
Okay. That's the good stuff.
That is the good stuff. Did you always want to be a dad? Did you know you wanted to be a dad?
Oh, yeah, very much so.
You did?
Yeah.
I've never asked you that.
Oh, one of the greatest things in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I just didn't know if it was something that you had grown up thinking about. So you did. You always knew you wanted to be a dad.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I know your memory. This is something you and I talk about a fair amount because of medications and other things are not having the best memories. So you can just do the best you can. But do you remember becoming a father? Do you remember when Heather and I were born? Heather's my sister who's 16 months older. Do you remember that time?
Well, obviously, it was a first time experience, right? And I remember you being delivered. And I remember about how beautiful I thought both you and Heather were right after I could see you. One of the most exciting times of my life was when you guys were born, and it created a whole new dimension for me of being a father and what it meant to be a father.
What do you remember about me as a kid, as a little girl?
Depends on which age, Kimmy.
You have an open mic, Dad. You can say whatever you want.
Well, let's see. What would I remember about you as a kid? You were always very focused. You were extremely bright and energetic. You were wonderful.
And rebellious.
And rebellious. Well, yes, you were rebellious. That was a function of your age, though. That was when you got to be 13 years old. And then it was a bit challenging.
Mom was on the front lines of that. I think we addressed that on the Mother's Day episode. I tried to apologize in public. I've actually never asked you about meeting Mom and falling in love and deciding to start a family. What do you remember about that?
Well, I met your mother for the first time. I had started a company. I had a client. I was visiting that client, and your mom greeted me and asked if I wanted anything. And I said, sure, I'd like a Coke. Well, as it turns out, at that time, I really didn't like a Coke, but I liked the person who was offering me a Coke. So
this is the moment in the interview where I'm fake listening while texting my mom halfway across the country because I think my dad needs a water. It has been a half century, and the woman is still making and bringing him waters and Diet Cokes on a daily basis.
The next thing that happened, interestingly enough, and I didn't find this out until a long time later, is that the day that Debbie met me, she went home that day and said to her mother, I've met the man I'm going to marry. And it was about 2 or 3 years when she happened to be in a building that I had an office in, and she was working for a company delivering tickets, airline tickets, and she looked up at the marquee and saw the name of my company in the building. So she decided to come up to my office and say hello. And that day, we had drinks after work, and from then on, we were pretty much inseparable.
What do you remember liking about her? What were you drawn to?
She was kind. She was extremely bright. She was very loving. She cared a lot about other people. We had several things that we both loved as our relationship evolved. Both of us loved sailing, which became a wonderful thing for us to do together. We both loved traveling, which we've done a lot of. We've been able to involve our kids and our grandkids in a great way in our lives. And we've been blessed we've been able to enjoy an experience with them.
You guys really have created this beautiful life. To go back to family and you falling in love with Mom and starting the family and becoming a father. You know, a lot of our growing up, you were working as an entrepreneur, building things, ideas and companies, and creating things in the world and creating opportunities for people, which I certainly watched you do. What were those decades for you of building companies while raising a family?
Well, it was very challenging because I had, as you know, started a company, actually later two companies, and being the founder of these companies, you got to spend a lot of time with the business, obviously, and it becomes a challenge to balance your relationship with your kids and your wife with your commitment to being a successful business person. And as I've shared with you and everyone, as I look back on it, I wish that I had spent more time with my family. But at the time, I was absorbed with being the good leader of a good company. So I remember I would I would get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and go to work and come home at 7 o'clock at night and spend time with my family, which I wish it had been more.
Yeah. But I hear you and I agree with you, and I've learned a lot recently. I think even more so during the pandemic and after, about time and how precious it is and how we value it and spend it. So I don't think it's ever perfect for anyone. But I also want to recognize that you were this very, especially considering the time, incredibly big-hearted entrepreneur, thinking about not just building a company that's financially successful, but making a positive impact in the world, through scholarship funds and building places that people love to work at and their families love to be a part of. So it's a disservice to just sort of ever paint you as just an entrepreneur, because you were creating a lot of really good, positive things in the world during that time away. We talked about meeting Mom, talked about me being born, a little bit about your career. We have a lot in common. One of the things we have in common is bipolar disorder. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. Well, it's a blessing and a curse, Kimi.
It sure is. What do you remember about, well, gosh, when you look back on it, I don't even know that I know that much about your story. So what do you remember about that you're comfortable sharing, I guess, about the moments, the marquee tentpole moments that led up to you eventually being diagnosed in your 50s? I mean, much, much later than I was diagnosed.
Because of when I was born and when I was growing up, there was very little knowledge that bipolar even existed. It wasn't till probably I was 40 years old and suffering from a lot of the characteristics of the disease that it was even known by most doctors of what it was and how to diagnose it and how to treat it. And so in that period of time, things had gotten worse and worse and worse before I was diagnosed. And I had a lot of the significant problems that bipolar illness seems to encourage. And that was, I thought about suicide at a point. I thought as I was finally diagnosed, I had a feeling that I was just not going to be able to function in the world. And it was around when I was 50 years old, actually, that I got diagnosed by a physician, and one of the rare physicians who really understood what was happening. And that started a long journey of trying to treat the illness, and which is kind of a trial and error is the way I would describe it. You're working with a physician, they're giving you medication and trying to tweak the medication to be what's right for you. And each case is different. So it's very, very challenging.
At the time of the diagnosis, was it a relief or were you scared? Were you ashamed? What do you remember about getting diagnosed?
Good question. I was concerned. I was scared because what I was experiencing was so extreme that I wasn't functioning properly, and it seemed to be getting worse. So, yes, I was scared.
And what do you mean you weren't functioning properly?
Well, I wasn't functioning properly because the moments of depression are huge. I was losing my self-confidence. I was concerned about the stigma surrounding mental illness. I was concerned that it would impact my ability as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as a manager. I felt like I was going crazy. That's why I was scared.
So, do you remember if did the diagnosis feel? Because I would think. Well, I know you didn't talk about it. This is definitely your first time talking about it publicly, and I don't even think you're 83 probably until the. Well, how open have you been about it? Actually, let me just ask you rather than presume.
Up until today,
yeah,
I've never been open about it. I've been concerned that if my employees knew that was the case, that they would not respect me early on, and I've chosen not to go public with this because of a lot of fears that probably were a function of my age and when I developed the symptoms. And yeah, I would use terms like embarrassing, feeling like you're judged by other people, not understanding the severity of the illness or the actions taken.
Yeah. You can't you don't have control of what narrative people have around the illness or what it says about you if you have the illness.
Absolutely true.
Yeah. And that's feels scary. Do you remember, because now that I think about it, you're holding a lot together on the outside because you obviously have a family and companies, and you're not behind the scenes at all. You're in a position of leadership. So do you remember how you managed going through a mental health crisis and depression and a diagnosis while trying to be in the world doing all those things?
Incredibly challenging. I think that some of the positive characteristics actually helped me. I think that I was very creative. I had a huge amount of energy. I had a respect for other people, my employees. Yeah, there are a lot of positive aspects of being bipolar. There are a lot of really, really negative aspects. But I think the combination was a reason for my success. And I think had I not been bipolar, I probably would not have been as successful.
I would agree with that statement. And people don't fully understand that the chemical imbalance in the brain, and part of ways of being, for some people, I think both you and I have certain aspects of these ways of being or attributes or tied to having this disorder can have positive outcomes. So how would you explain that to somebody who doesn't understand what the hell we're talking about?
Well, first of all, I haven't tried to explain it to anybody because I've only shared it with my family and some close friends. But the highs are high and the lows are low, and I think it's really hard to mask the problem so that people don't figure out for themselves that there's something wrong. I think it's very hard to explain to somebody because they have no point of reference. So in the case of our family, obviously, it's been a problem and a blessing. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I passed it down to you. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you remember about me being diagnosed?
Oh, scary. Because of what I was experiencing when you were diagnosed. We went to Africa. We came back you came back from Africa and displayed for the first time some serious concerns on our part that you were bipolar.
Just the not eating and sleeping and
yeah,
yeah,
and depression, and I think you were having I know you were having a terrible struggle at the time, dealing with school, and I knew the bad side that I was experiencing, and I was really concerned that you would experience the same thing. So
I didn't even think about that you were, I don't know how I didn't even think about that you had firsthand knowledge of how scary it must have been for you, especially since you had suicidal thoughts, and then knowing that I had the same thing must have been really scary.
Really scary.
Yeah. I really, we always talk about how we both have bad memories. So I don't know if it's because you were working so much when I was growing up, but our father-daughter relationship obviously began the day that I was born, but I really look at how incredibly close we are. And I, for some reason, really mark the beginning of that really strong unit that the two of us are around Boulder and the diagnosis. There was something about the way you showed up for me during that time. And I don't know if it was because you were just figuring out yourself and how to help yourself. And so you were equipped with so much. But in my timeline of our relationship, that is a very important marker of our closeness.
Yeah. I think by that time, I was really, really concerned and wanting to develop a close relationship. I was less concerned at that point in my life of being successful in business as being successful as a father and having a close relationship with all of you.
I don't know. I remember going to Steamboat Spring. We were in Steamboat Springs, and I was really, really, really not well. I don't know. I just remember like driving along the creek bed, and you took me to an acupuncturist, and I think we maybe even like stopped at a chapel or something. We walked in some sort of, I think it was a chapel along a creek, but I just really remember you being like there in it with me, if that makes sense. And I don't even know if you remember all of that, but you were very much like next to me.
Well, I've always wanted to be next to you and next to my entire family. And I definitely felt an increasing bond over time for reasons I think that I was able to spend more time with you. I was really proud of you and wanted to share my strong feelings about what a wonderful person you were.
Yeah, you were. I felt very freaked out is the understatement. Just scared to like be in my body, to live in my body, to all of that. And you were right there with me in a really beautiful way. And I think, I was hiking with a friend whose son was going to college last year, and she was talking about, relationships and kids. This moment where all of a sudden your kids are gone and you think, well, that's it, right? Here was this chance to build the relationship and the connection. And I brought us up and just, if we're lucky, life is long, and that, a relationship between a father and a daughter or a mother and a son isn't just 18 years, ideally, again, if we're lucky. But I feel like ours really just got started when I was a young adult, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I thought it was hopeful in the sense that if there's some people who feel some sense of regret about the childhood years, that like, so there I was 19, I'm 40, I'll be 47, I think, next week, that we've had all of this connection and shared experience. And yeah, it's really, it's interesting because you're so important to me as a person, because I just think you get me in a way that is so unique and special. And I think you're probably the one person in the world who I feel like you can I don't know if it's respond, receive, relate to all the different aspects of me. I feel like there's certain pieces of myself that I have to pull back sometimes based on who I'm in the room with or what I'm talking about. And I feel like all the different versions of me, you know how to be with, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. That's the way I feel.
It's like the ruminating, crazy me, the big idea, like big dream chasing me, like the sad, weepy me, the family me, like most of my like deeper ways of being, like you, I feel like very safe being all of those, and at ease being all of those ways with you.
That is so special. You are, like all of my kids, so special in my life. I do feel an incredibly close bond with you in many, many respects. I just adore you, and I am so proud of you and the way that you treat people and the way that you are there for family, all of our family. I just feel a warmth about our bond together, I guess.
I mean, I wish that I could explain to people listening, like how how deeply supportive you are as a father. This is the man who took a ad out in the local Coeur d'Alene, Idaho newspaper, a full-page ad when I had a documentary film out because he wanted people to go and see it. So I just do very much feel like for all of your kids and your grandkids, you're always rooting us on. And I know that everybody feels that support and that love. What has been the greatest gift of fatherhood and grandfatherhood for you?
Oh, the greatest gift of being a father, being a grandfather, is the love. I guess it's the love, and the degree of love. To share my life with my family, and as a father, having that opportunity to bond in a very dear and meaningful way with my kids and my grandkids.
If there are fathers listening, younger dads listening, is there any piece of wisdom from a wise 83-year-old man that you would offer fathers listening?
Well, the world is challenging for anybody. And I think as a parent, you want to make your children feel safe. Obviously, you want to make your children feel incredibly loved. And to be a good parent means so many different things that focusing on one, probably there isn't one, there are just so many. Being kind, being considerate, being loving, being willing to be vulnerable. There are just so many aspects of it.
Yeah. Well, you keep getting better and better with age, Dad.
Thank you, Kimi.
I love you so much, and early happy Father's Day.
Thanks, honey.
Love you. Okay.
Love you, sweetheart. See you soon. See you soon.
All right. See you soon next week. All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, honey.
Hello, wise ones. We have officially launched All the Wiser membership. If you love this show and the stories and wisdom we share, this is for you. We have everything from early release, live Zooms with me and the All the Wiser team, and you can even drop in and watch a recording. You can also get voice memos directly from me and receive producer credit with your name added to our website wall. You can learn more about the membership, including a short video for me, and sign up for the membership using the Patreon link below in our show notes. You can also go to allthewiserpodcast.com or Instagram at allthewiserpodcast to learn more.